Your friends, your friends. Radio friends again. Radio friends again. We've got a lot to share.
And welcome to another edition of Radio Friends again, August 9th of 2024. And we're a little bit before 10 o'clock. We usually get started around 9:45, and then it takes a little while to get in and out of makeup and get ready for all this stuff. Zoom is tough. Boy, oh boy, radio was always wonderful because we never had to worry about what we look like. Now,
Pictures? Who needs them?
we just hope that our friends are losing their vision so they don't know what we really look like. But I'm Steve Parker, and here with me, we've got Pete Salant. Good morning, Pete.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
Good, good. How you doing?
Good. Looking forward to seeing you next week.
Oh, gosh, August 18th. It's
Yeah.
gonna be a big reunion, even if it's
Got-
just 6 of us.
Got my plane tickets. Got my hotel reservation. Got my rental car. I'm all
Oh,
set.
you're not kidding. You're really coming in. Holy Toledo.
You betcha. Yeah, I'm spending some money to come in instead of just driving up.
We certainly appreciate it. And Dave Overson's here. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Steve, on this rainy day, and I'm inside my camper and keeping nice and dry. And well, a few leaks here and a couple leaks there and a couple
Here a
leaks
leak,
there,
there
but
a leak, everywhere a leak.
Yeah,
That's
leak, yeah.
You're talking about that. As you do get older, you experience a lot more leaks.
I would
Oh,
use
yes.
onions
You have no
instead,
idea.
but,
yeah.
And we got Bob Marks is here. Some of the guys down there in the radio world also know him as Bart Mazzarella. Especially, I actually did have the mozzarella, the mozzarella bolognese the last time that we got down there and had dinner together. Bob, I remember that. Very, very.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We had a good time. Good time getting together with the Oversons and you guys and Angela.
Yeah.
Kaz was doing not too bad that day, and I wish he was doing well now. But you know, it's an old story, same old thing. But glad to be with you guys once again. Pete, good
Glad
to
to have
see
you.
you.
yes, good to see you too, Bart. Do you make the sauce or does Kaz make the sauce?
No, I do all the cooking. I do all the
Okay.
shopping. I do all the cooking. I
Right.
create meals that are restaurant quality.
Hey, Bart,
I've got
Yummy.
nothing but time on my hands these days,
Yeah.
Pete.
I guess
Bart,
so.
I got to ask you a question. Now, I've had dinner at your place several times. How do you still stay so thin? I mean, I look at your
it's,
food and I gained 20 pounds, you know.
I think I told you before that a couple of years ago we decided no longer to use our dinner plates. We use
Mhm.
salad plates. You know, the small salad plates.
Nice.
Good idea.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you think you're eating, you know, a lot, but you're really not. So and then I'm very passionate about going to the gym and you know doing hour and a half workouts with weights and you know that's how I've managed to bring my waistline down to where I feel comfortable. I brought my weight down from what usually was around 217 to 220 down to 189 where I am now. I
Wow.
went from an extra large to a large, and so I'm actually doing pretty good.
Ooh, look at
Yeah,
those
look at
guns.
those guns.
See
Yeah.
that?
huh?
And all that's just from saying good morning to Bob Marks all the way from Vero Beach. Well,
Got it.
and
Yeah, what's the weather like there, Bart or Bob?
It's hot, sunny. We've had tons and tons of rain, you know, typical summer weather down here in Florida. You know, it's steamy, hot, but we have moderating temperatures because of the breeze on it from the ocean. You know, we're only a few miles away from the ocean over here.
Yeah.
Good.
That's why
All
I
right.
live in Vero Beach. It's paradise.
All right. That's
So
our
Port St.
update
Louis,
from Bob Marks and his sidekick, Dave Overson. All right, let's see who else we've got on the call this morning. There's Ed Bruder. Hi, Ed. How are you?
I'm good. I'm at the opposite of what Bob has down in Florida at Vero Beach this morning. It's gloomy and about 65 degrees and rainy here in New Hampshire. We're getting the
Peter
remnants
Bush.
of Hurricane Debbie today.
Oh boy. How you doing, Peter?
Hey, hi guys.
Nice.
It's like 15 degrees warmer in New Canaan today than it was yesterday. The last 2 days, it was really cold. I mean, it never got out of the 60s. And yeah,
cold
I
is a
guess,
relative term, Peter.
oh yeah, cold as ice. I know. So no, everything's good. How you guys doing? What's up?
Good.
Hi, Peter.
Yeah, we're comparing we're comparing health issues, and we started complaining about all the things that are breaking down. And Dave said, "You got
Oh
to
God.
record
Well,
this."
that's a slippery slope once you get into that conversation.
Oh my God, I know.
More
And-
ways than one.
Mhm.
Let's see, Ron Pell. Morning, Ron from the Shire. How are you, Ron?
Yeah, it was so much rain last night that the town manager sent out a note saying they were going to pull the bridge up over the moat, the moat that surrounds the Shire, because there was so much rain. So it's hey, I want to just make a quick comment about what Bob is saying. And I know I preached about this before. If you don't do it, start immediately, and that is resistance training, weightlifting. You don't have to lift 1,000 pounds. You don't even have to go to a gym. But if you can go to a gym, you should do it. You know, Steve, you make those spaces, and I get it. But how many times have I told you? And Bob will agree with me. The studies indicate that resistance training in your 60s, 70s, and beyond is probably the most important thing you can do. More important than cardio training and all that. Because think about this. Who said slippery slope? Somebody said that, maybe Peter. You know, you fall and break your hip. 80% of people who break their hip in their 70s, guess what? A year later, they're not there anymore.
See ya.
So, and mobility, strength training, some cardio. I mean, but strength training is super, super important.
I
That's
swim
my,
twice. I swim
that's my
twice a
sermon.
day.
You swim twice a week?
Twice a day.
Twice
Good.
a day?
Great exercise. That's great cardio exercise. Now you got to get some weightlifting and do some squats and deadlifts for your legs.
Yeah, I do squats, but I think overall that you know, the balance of swimming is that it really isn't bad for any part of you, because you're using your legs, you're using your arms, you're doing this, you're doing that, you know, you're doing this.
Bad news.
When I swim,
Bad
I
news
usually
about
do
swimming,
this. One,
It's not weight
two.
bearing. The bad news about swimming is not weight bearing. So you're doing nothing
No,
for
no.
osteoporosis. You got it, you know, and you should look, swimming's great, hard. I can't swim. Terrible at it. I went to do triathlons at one time. I knew I couldn't do it because I wasn't a good swimmer. I could run, I could bike and do all that. But you need to do some you know, weight bearing exercise.
You know what a lot of people are doing at our age these days is playing pickleball.
Yes.
I discovered pickleball, and you know, it looks easy, but when you
not
get into it, it's not easy, but it's great. Once you get going on it and you learn how to play the game and all that, it really is good cardio.
Because really, Bob, the biggest problem with that right now, and I can speak from somebody who has a bad back and bad knees and everything else. If you don't have a bad back and bad knees and everything, stay the hell away from pickleball, because that I've had more people getting hurt from that. The orthopedic guys are thrilled about it. Their business has gone way up, because if you don't have those problems, like my sister's doing it, and she's older than I am, and I'm like, Kath, you've never had these. Once you do a hip, a knee, a back, I mean, like Ron was saying, you fall. It takes a long time. So God bless you for doing it. All I'm saying is, and I say the same thing to my sister, you know, until you hurt one of those things that never really seems to stop hurting, that's just,
well, like everything else, you got to find what works for you. You know, if pickleball works, I have a friend, Ed, who's sadly battling some cancer issues, and he plays pickleball like 2 hours a day. And he loves it. It's a great, you know, it's a great exercise. But Steve, to your point, like everything else, we go at it too hard, and the next thing you know, oh my God, what did I do to my knee? Oh my God, what did I do to my back? You know.
I debate whether it's really great exercise to play pickleball. I mean, I played it a bunch. My brother plays all the time. He lives in St. George, Utah. Chuck is 70.
Great city, by the way.
Yeah,
St. George is great.
Yep. In fact, that's where Squatty Potty's located. That's where Squatty Potty is.
Rice and Zion. Rice and Zion.
Sorry, I mentioned it. No, but Chuck plays a lot. He plays every day. He's fine, but you know, we grew up in a racket family. We all played tennis and things like that. I was never that good at it. But you got to be careful. Ankles, Steve, are a big problem for pickleball. A lot of ankle injuries. You got to be really careful. I mean, it's
two things that I believe in. Ron said them both, and that's resistance and squats. Basically, I resist going to the gym in the morning, and I don't do squats. Okay, everybody.
I knew somebody was going to say that.
Let's see where Bob Craig. Hi, Bob. Good morning. Are you working out this morning? You in the gym?
No, I was just going to say that probably the most strenuous exercise that I do is well beyond the squats and the weightlifting. I cue records, queuing them back and forth. It's very,
Yeah.
Great for your finger mobility. Yeah.
God bless you. You still
Well,
do that?
I still
you
do
really?
that. Yeah.
Oh my
Cue
God.
records.
Yeah.
Cueing records.
Try to avoid cue burns too.
So did you guys, did you guys, when I started at WINE in Brookfield, Pete and Slant might remember this.
Yes.
We had those big Gates, 15-inch, they were even bigger than that, turntables.
Yes, they
And
would
we
accommodate they would accommodate 16-inch discs.
No kidding. So,
Yeah.
when you put a little 45 in there and then you had to cue the thing, it was like you had to be really careful. And I remember back timing the thing we'd cue up like a single, and then you'd have to back wheel it a little bit. And then when you came out of a jingle, it was like WINE, by the time, right?
You had to start the turntable before the jingle, well before the jingle was over. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you
Yeah.
guys ever play with those things?
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember some of those tables had two arms to them.
Yep.
One would be for
One
the
was
acetates,
one
and the
arm was
other
for
for-
transcription,
Yeah.
because the record would move from inside outward.
Mhm.
And we had two of those tables at WDRC when we were at 750 Main Street. And so what's this extra arm for? And somebody told me what it was. So, I didn't think about it. One day, Charlie came in to me and said, somebody has a record. They would like you to know if you can copy it. And it was a transcription record. Thing was about 12 inches or even more, 16 inches. And took the needle, put it in the center, and the arm would move outward and towards the edge of the record. And I was able to make a copy, and the person was very happy. One
Well,
other
Ed
thing,
Bruder- excuse me, Ed, I'm sorry, Dave. Ed Bruder has the transcription that we had put onto a CD of my mom and dad announcing their engagement on DRC in the 1940s.
Yeah,
So
one of many transcription discs I've worked with. Tracy Carmen and I have both done a lot with these. I have a transcription turntable. It's a modern manufacturing piece, but it plays the old records, and it's got multiple tone arm needles on it.
And I've got I was going to say, I've got the WTIC's transcription turntables, which they're throwing out. One works and one for parts, and they're still shrink wrapped. I've never used them because all the projects that I've done, I've sent out of house.
They
But we
put
do
me
have a
out on
trans-
they put me out on the curb twice at TIC so far. They keep trying to throw me back out, but fortunately Morgan Cunningham comes out and brings me back into the building and puts me in the studio.
one of the characteristics of those big tables, especially the wooden ones, the rumble had very poor dampening. I mean, you could hear even on the air, we do spots, and I was using those when I was at 750 Main Street, and these things would rumble. You can hear the rumble, especially on a large record.
Dave, where
And
was
there's
that
no-
double arm turntable? I don't recall that. Was that in
That
the
was
main
in-
production though?
Yeah, when you walked into the productions at 750 Main Street, you had two turntables.
Yeah.
Both had the double arms on them, and they were both used for transcribing.
Wow.
Yeah.
As early as or as late as 1962, DRC was still recording some commercials onto disc, because I have a couple of those discs, and Jerry Bishop and
How do you do that?
Ron Landry with the voices on them.
Put the needle on there and make like you make a record, and you have to keep blowing away the shavings.
Right.
as
Are
the
you
exactly.
kidding
record's
me?
going around?
Wow.
I think I mentioned to you guys when I was at BZ in '63, they were just converting over to cartridge, and they were running jingles off of acetate, and it was.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And
That's
and the
crazy.
thing about the acetate, Charlie told me some horror stories. It's very flammable,
Yes.
very flammable. And Charlie started with smoking and threw one into a bin, and the thing bounced off and hit all the shavings on the floor. Put the whole record room up in smoke.
See, a lot of people ask why I went in and spent a few years as a volunteer fireman. All these stories we tell about my dad trying to set things on fire. But I will tell you that one time in our house we had I heard this boom and black smoke rolling out into the living room, and my father just casually goes, "Stephen, you might want to call the fire department." And our furnace had backfired. And being a professional fire person, first thing I did with the oil burner was put water on it. Nope. It's kind of,
No.
it's kind of, as a fireman, here I am panicking. And I said, you want to hand me the fire extinguisher? So yeah, there's a reason why I said I better become a fireman or a fire person. There's a lot of women these days. Let me just drop in the rest of the guys that are here because this is the August 9th edition of Radio Friends again, and we're doing it live right now, a little after 10 o'clock. And let's see, we last checked in with Bob Craig. That means we've got John Landry here. Hi, John.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Do you have any updates as far as recording anything or acetates or your body, your broken bones? No?
Broken bones, probably. A lot of exercises and going to physical therapy to get, the kinks out.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time. I'm thinking of quitting smoking, but I know that's going to upset Ron Pell. Let's see. I've got Tracy Carmen. Hi, Tracy.
Good morning, everybody. Live and direct from Longmeadow, Mass. It's funny. I've got like 10 wooden crates, which probably weigh 100 pounds each, of the WTIC transcription disc they were going to throw away back in the mid 90s. And we pulled those out of there. I mean, I'm telling you, we transferred a lot of them. And some of them go back to like 1926.
That's your weight training, right?
That's it. Squats with
there you go.
Crates.
Whatever it takes.
Tracy, what was the playback speed on those?
A lot of them are at 16. A lot of them are at 78.
78.
I didn't do the transfers. Peter Canis did a lot of transfers on them, so I'm not 100% sure what they are all at. They kept a lot of local stuff too, like local glee clubs. Have a lot of those recordings from different local groups, and also a bunch of the plaques they were throwing in the trash can too. It's amazing.
What was the purpose of 78? High-speed transcription or fidelity, because they had to rotate really fast?
In the early days of it, there was no standard for recording on disc, and that was one of the problems. That's why it got obsolete, basically, because everybody had these different turntables at different speeds.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could stop and you think about it. They could cram more stuff on a 33 than on a 78, and the 45 was intermediate, for the small, 7-inch singles. And the technology, I mean, when we were cleaning out WMAS, we found some wire recordings going back to day one.
Wow.
Yes, and machine to play them.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Colt has arrived.
Dick Colt is in the vault. Good morning to you, Dick.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, guys? It's 77 degrees in the breeze. I'm a little bit overcast here in Westport, but you know what? We'll get through it today.
Yeah. I like that affected jock sound.
We call it. He's a fuguer.
Afflicted.
Call him fugers.
Wait,
how's everybody?
Jock sound? This is how I talk all the time.
Okay, now.
Hey, Hank Tenney, how are you?
Oh, God.
Hank Ted with Hank Tenney.
Hank Ted with Hank Tenney. Jim Harrington's here. Good morning, Jim. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. How you doing? I never work with any acetate recordings, but I work with some of the oldest cart machines. The old clunkers that you
hold the lever.
Spot master.
Yeah,
you put it in.
If you had the mic open, it sounded like you were shifting gears in a Mack truck.
Tape casters, spot masters.
Yep.
How about how many guys you put a tape in and forget to pull the lever clutch, and then you hit the thing and it doesn't go off, and then you hit it and then pull the clutch and think,
I remember that now. Yes,
yes, sir.
All the spots that I ran in my first job were all reel to reel. I was paid $5 a day for an 8-hour day.
Wow,
they got their money's worth, and
that was minimum
wage.
I had some carts from DRC, which they got rid of pretty quickly because the jocks would have a habit of flipping them over on their, upside down. And these particular ones, the tape would fall off of them when you did that. So they kind of replaced them quickly.
Yeah. At WICH in Norwich, when I was there in 66, they were running all the commercials off of MagnaCord, and an engineer ran them. And they were all these small reels, 3 or 4 inch reels, and every spot was on reel to reel like that. It was just, really very cumbersome.
When I was at ESPN, we used to make comp reels, composite reels of all the commercials, and we would get a copy of the log, and we had a thing called Digitrol, and that would put the 3/4 inch tape in. They have four machines, and then you would program the breaks, and then in between the breaks you would put 0 and then start all over again. And that worked great when it worked. When it didn't work, and now you're recording, and now you have to go back, make an edit. Oh, it was horrendous. Then we had Cavcart. That was another one we made our commercials on 1-inch reels, and we had all the breaks in order and all together. And then eventually we had like a Cavcart with all the tape discs, the cassette discs in the machine, and we would play them live. And that was also fun too. And then
Dave, I was trying to think, what year was ESPN what was their first year? 75?
1979.
79. Okay.
Yep, 79. September 7th, 1979. Number one. We had that, and then of course when the new technology came in and we had the everything was done on computers, that was beautiful because you didn't have to make comp reels anymore. Everybody hated doing that job because it was a monotonous, mundane job. But if something went wrong, you had to know your stuff. And then of course sometimes you would put the wrong commercial in because you misread the number, and it was hell.
Tracy,
do you remember the automation system that we had at WLAE for?
Yeah, it was the carousel.
WACN.
It was carousel.
The carousel.
Yep, the carousel.
Yeah.
And that was fun, wasn't it, Bart?
We had to feed it.
Yeah.
We had to feed it. We had to change the tapes, right?
Yeah, you had to change the tapes, put all the breaks in there, and of course, then you run back to the WLAE studios, and then you're
right.
Studio, and you're reading something here, in the back, and it's the jamming of the carousel. So, give a break. We'll be back after this, and then run in and loosen up the and clear the jam of the carousel. That was a piece of work. And
Tracy, do you remember, Tracy, Ed, Dave, for about 11 minutes, maybe around, I don't know, I want to say maybe 1960, 60-ish, some stations, and there weren't many, had this setup where there was a roll of tape that would accommodate maybe 100 pieces of audio, and they were like 1/4 of an inch thick, and it would roll across and play, and it would constantly break down. Have you ever seen anything like that?
Was that the McKenzie repeater, Trace?
I think it's the McKenzie. Yeah, McKenzie unit. HYN had one here where you had to move the tape up and down. I've never seen one in person since I was born in 1960, but I am familiar with what it is. There's all sorts of formats that people have used to store stuff. I'm dealing with DATs right now, and they are such a freaking pain in the ass. It's not even funny.
Some was the format that was supposed to last forever, right?
Yeah, so are CDs, but reality is reality. And I've got 24 machines, and not one of them is working. And trying to get parts and trying to get them fixed is a real ball buster. I mean, the formats I've seen over the years since I've been doing this stuff, I mean, to me, reel-to-reels, the worst are the tapes from the 1970, 71, 72, the Ampex 456, Scotch 811, where they stopped using whale oil as a lubricant. Those have to be baked. We use American Harvester food dehydrators to bake the reels. I've seen stuff stored on wire. I've seen stuff stored in what's called the F1 format. Well, and that's what they're using to master CDs for a while. Basically, it's digital videotape with an adapter on it. But that, to me, is the worst of them at this point. Trying to get stuff to work properly. It's basically a small U-matic tape. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it for those with video. It's just a small, I'm surprised I don't have it. They're all in the other room. But they're horrible. And I've got probably 4,000 or 5,000 still left to transfer. And you have to do it in real time, one-to-one time.
Yeah. 2 years ago, when we had the DRC anniversary, Walter Haas's kid was there. Now, Walter was the original station manager when Mr. Doolittle owned DRC.
Yep.
His son is now well into his 80s. And he brought a pile of transcription discs, none of which were labeled, and said, "Would you be able to dub these for me?" So I brought them home and I put the first one on, and it's like 6 or 7 cuts for Connecticut Bank and Trust Company, 6 60-second spots. I said, okay, so I grease penciled what it was, went to the next disc, said, gee, these sound familiar. It was an identical copy of the first one. There were like 8 copies of this, and I finally realized this is what they used to give each other instead of tape dubs. So that if your station was recording the spot, you would record 6 or 8 other discs to give the other stations in the market. And these, I was able to date these to about 1959.
There's actually a station right now that's doing everything, and they got a great range on their playlist, and it's called Disc to That. Oh, don't you love it, guys?
Yeah.
Disc to That. Hey, ho, hey, you know.
Hey,
I'm
Ed,
sorry
I just want
interrupt.
to jump in. Ed, you know, that's funny you mentioned that because when this talks about the camaraderie of radio stations. When we would go every Friday, we would send somebody out to do it. We called it a tape run. In those days, all the commercials were on little tapes, reel-to-reel tapes, and that's how we ran them. And we would send somebody out, like, you know, usually the rookie on the sales staff would say, okay, here's where you're going today. You're going to RCH, you're going to TIC, or somebody, and one of the stations would volunteer to make all the dubs. So they put all the dubs in the front, and we would do it very often too. We put all the dubs on the front desk in the reception, and during the day, there you go. And during the day, reps would come in and pick up tapes, or we would go out and get tapes. And that was a very, very, so what you mentioned is a process that went on for decades.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. Clark Smith just joined us. Hi, Clark. How are you?
I'm fine. Good morning from New Hampshire. It's a little soggy, but you know, that happens. By the way, Hartford's PPMs came out yesterday evening. I have them if you're interested.
Cool. Well, listen, you might have the PPMs, but if you go on Facebook, finally it has come out. The Connecticut Post has listed the best Connecticut radio shows. This is the Connecticut Post on Facebook, and of course, one of the things they do put out here is a little print that says paid advertisement. Go figure. And
that's an AJ.
Yep. Nope. Number 1 is Wow Radio, which is Clark's station.
No, it's not.
No.
Time out.
You started as different call letters. I know. Go ahead.
No. You have to understand that I worked with Steve Zion at the car dealership for 2 years. All right. He originally wanted a podcast studio. And I said, no, you don't need a podcast studio. You need a radio studio. And he said, that's great. Why don't you put your radio station in here? Oh, wow. Hey, that sounds terrific. So I helped him with the design of the studio. He was going to have 2 rooms. I had him 1. I got him 2 people to talk to. He only talked to 1 engineer to build it. And he wanted the Taj Mahal. He spent shitloads of money on this very beautiful podcast studio that, quite frankly, is intimidating. You know, it's tough to work, okay? And then the engineer hooked up the mouse the wrong way, so the people were getting delays in using the automation. You can't run a mouse to Rivendell through the internet. Okay, so he immediately blamed it on me and the engineers bickering. And okay, so he spent $35,000 to put in an RCS. All right. I got the FM put together with considerable work and signed it on the air on June 21st of a year ago, June 21st, 23. I went into his office the next day expecting to get high fives, and he was pretty much stone-faced, didn't look up from his phone, says, I don't want to do this no more. I said, well, Steve, we got it on the air. We've got it already. You said, you build them, I'll buy them, you run them. No, I don't want to do that no more. So the FM is installed and it's on the air. And then he sent me a proposal that basically he would pay for it with a note secured by WATX that he could call anytime.
Oh boy.
Plus charging me rent for the studio and other things. So on July 17 last year, I disconnected his studio. And I'd put together the team, Pam and Brian and the engineer and everybody else. And we had broadcast from his studio from January until July. And I had to disconnect because it was premature transfer of control. The guy suddenly changed his tune, and that was the story. So here we are a year later, and he calls it WOW Radio. It is not licensed. It doesn't have generators in case of emergency. Even the goat farm has a generator to keep us on the air. Okay? So you know what a local license is. And Pete, I know you feel my pain because I'm the latest AH to have 1220.
That's it.
Nonetheless, you know, I believe in it. It runs inexpensively. It sounds pretty damn good for something that I can run off my home in New Hampshire. And it ain't no radio station. So that's my
not only that, Clark,
and PLR should go bullshit.
You know, Clark, the other stupid thing they did, of course, and it's not, I don't think it was you, it was probably Steve. If you're gonna have a radio station inside a car dealership, put it someplace where people can come in looking at cars.
No kidding. He hit it in the top floor.
Yeah.
It's on the second floor, which is only for employees. It was not down in the showroom. We didn't even have a direct window to the outside, but it was beautiful.
Well, I know, but hey, let me tell you something. When Dave and I were on POP, we were looking at opportunities to go to Meriden and Middletown. I said, no, we did Hartford. We're good. But if you walk inside Papa's Dodge in New Britain, Connecticut, you'll see home of the Steve Parker Morning Show, and it points up to the ceiling because we used to have a radio station in there, but it was just for the people that were shopping for cars there. So now we went, I went a couple of levels, outside of that because it was a car dealership. It wasn't even online. But anyways, I'm sorry to interrupt it, but I have to admit, when you look at this from the Connecticut Post and you see WOW Radio as Best of Connecticut winner, and then you do see Chaz and AJ runner-up Best of Connecticut. But you do see ICE Radio at 1620 is the finalist Best of Connecticut. Jimmy and Shelley, who are not the same Jimmy and Shelley. This is the Jimmy and Shelley in the morning at 97.7 WCTY. Now, one of Ron's favorite stations, the Mighty Whiny, WINY AM 1350 and 97.1. They're also a finalist. And this was all just put together by the Connecticut Post. One of the most listened to radio stations here. And they have little critiques about different radio stations in the state. But the ones here, the companies with a winner, runner-up, or finalist badge had the most votes in the Best of Connecticut Reader's Choice Survey, which was managed by the Hearst Connecticut Media Group. These companies can optionally pay to upgrade a sponsored listing and may choose to rewrite their business summary. Anyways, it is all paid advertising, and you got to love it. Which is why you see things like in Connecticut Magazine, like the best of doctors, the best of whatever. Most of that is generally tied to advertising. And I just want to also mention that Lee Gordon just dropped in with us. And we just want to mention that because this is the 9th of August with Radio Friends again. And we have a great lineup this morning. And I'm in Steve Parker in Berlin. But I just did want to, we were talking a lot, Lee, before you joined us. And I would like to mention it from your standpoint, from a production standpoint. Ron was saying that, Ron, explain that to Lee again, what you were talking about, different stations with the dubs.
Well, we would, of course, Lee would know this. We would pair dubs of commercials. And back in those days, this is back, I don't know, 30 years ago, we would do tape runs. Reps would go out and pick up tapes at different stations because we would all, like, for example, for the Connecticut Toyota dealers, well, there might be 10 stations on that buy. So the Connecticut Toyota dealers, Charmaine Seavey, whoever's buying the time, would say, you can pick up the tape at WTIC, it'll be ready after 2 o'clock, or producers too, after 2 o'clock. And then someone from the station would have to go and pick it up. And then, by the way, while you're out there, you got to stop over at TIC because we got a spot for, better betting. and then head over to POP because there's a bunch of spots over there, and we got a spot for something else. And so people, we have these rookies out spending 3 or 4 hours just going and pick up tapes. So the engineers, you guys, Dave and Lee, you would prepare all those tapes.
Yeah, I would make the dubs for the ones that had to be picked up at POP. But the other thing is, for a while, I used to do the Hartford Courant radio ads, and they were topical ads. So the ad would be what's going to be in that day's paper. And so at about 5 o'clock, I would go from the radio station over to Tapeworks, and we would be waiting for the copy to come in from the newspaper. Basically the rep from the ad rep from the paper would be waiting for the budget meeting for them to, they decided what was going to be, other than like breaking news that happened overnight, what was going to be on the front page of the next day's paper. And then we would write up, they would write up the script. I would record it. And because, I was going to have to go back to the station and get dubbed anyway, I would just hang around, wait for the tape, bring it back to the station, put it on a cart. And, but there was another stack of the boxes that all of the sales reps would come, and they probably wouldn't be able to get it until 6 o'clock or so. And
one of the experiences I had, Bill Hines and I used to battle it out every once in a while. Bill Hines was a great sales manager, and he calls me to his office. This is where we were at Blue Hills Avenue, and I go into his office, points to me, have a seat. So I do, sitting there, and he's talking to this person about, oh, no problem. Yeah, but we got one of the best production guys here in the world. Oh, this guy is tremendous. No problem. Yeah, we'll have it to you by 5 o'clock. I look at him, I said, you're going to have what? He says, can you make 40 dubs and have them ready by 5 o'clock? It's now 4:15. And I said, I got other stuff I got to do. How am I going to? I got to have, I promised the guy. I says, yeah, but you didn't talk to me first. So here I'm putting everything else aside and cranking out 40 freaking dubs. And then we used to have the little 5-inch reel spools that I would get from other stations and take the tape off it and put the spots on those reels. It was a pain in the ass.
Just typing the labels took half an hour.
Oh yeah. And we did them by hand. There was no printout stuff. And what was funny, because Bill and I, we had a big blowout. And in fact, Rob came in and goes, you guys okay? You guys cool? Yeah, we're good. So Bill's leaving. I'm doing the middle of dubs. I've got about maybe 25 done, and I'm doing them. And Hines comes into the production room and he says, we still on for tomorrow? I said, tomorrow? Yeah, we're playing golf. And I said, yeah, we're still on. Oh, great, Jake. Great. He walks out. One other time he did the same thing, and I was walking out with him, and as soon as the door closed behind him, he was a changed person. Totally changed. I've never seen anybody do that. Leave your work behind you.
Oh no, I will say, Dave, excuse me, I can say that when and Dick Dick Calk can go along with that too. When with Ron, sometimes the heat would get so bad inside the building, and with the pressure and how many stations we'd have to get stuff on, and only a few hours to do it in sometimes. And Ron didn't even have any friggin' clue who I was in the building because he was doing everything. And one morning the pressure, because he changed. My friend Ron would come back after we left the building, which was great. But the pressure would get so bad. So one time, just to see if Ron was still in there as Ron, I put on my dad's black leather pants, and I walked into the doorway first thing in the morning, and Ron's already freaking out. And I slapped my hips with those black leather pants on. I said, "Good morning, Ron." Totally lost it. So we could get him to snap out of it every now and then. But yeah, I mean, when the pressure got bad, and I know between Lee Gordon and Dave Overson, both of you could go on and on about stories when I was on the sales side, And I know Lee, 2 times at least, Lee, where I actually saw him go purple while he was screaming at me. Dave threw me out of production more than once. I remember one time I did drop my pants in front of Dave and my shorts, and I apologized to Dave because he said if you're really sorry, you would drop your pants. But, you know, somehow all of this stuff, the camaraderie stayed there just like now. And we'd all stay pals throughout the whole thing.
I just got to jump in with a pressure story. If you guys remember back in the day, the station logs, the commercial logs were handwritten.
Oh yeah.
And we had a guy, and the guys who worked at DRC probably remember a guy named Phil Stebbin.
Yep.
Mr. Fix-It.
And at the time, Bob Kurzman had left DRC. As a matter of fact, the big trivia question is who replaced Bob Kurzman at WDRC? Well, it was Ron Pell. But Bob Kurzman would come in at 4:47 on a Friday with an order. And eventually we stopped doing it. We said, Bob, we're not taking orders after 12 o'clock on Fridays. Because he would come in, walk in, barge in, and then go to Phil Stebbin and say, I got to get these on the log right now. You got to put these on the log. I bought the Weekend Shopper special. It starts tonight and it has to be on the log for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Well, Phil had just about finished all the logs. And now we have, and literally you would see the log paper all the way down his desk to the floor. And he would try and put them in. Well, he would go nuts. And the sales manager there was a guy named Tom Pate, a Buckley buddy. And Tom Pate would have to come in and literally referee between poor Phil Stebbin and Bob Kurzman. And it was havoc. If you remember, that's how we used to do commercials. And the pressure on Phil to get he had to get out Saturday, Sunday, and Monday logs by the end of the day Friday. I mean, it's such a crazy undertaking.
And you know, I remember when Kurzman would walk in and he'd give us, it was live copy for a furniture store, and it was like 5 minutes worth of copy.
Yeah, well, that was the other thing he was known for.
Yeah. Can you do this in 59 seconds?
Yeah. I almost got fired because I told Kurzman to go fuck himself.
You're not the only one, Lee.
Well, I remember one time, because one of the things that we always had at DRC was if you wanted to change something, you had an AVO. You had to write it down.
Verbal orders.
Avoid verbal orders. And one time, Kurzman called me when I was doing some cable sales, and he gave me on the machine, and there was like 134 lines on this contract. And if you wanted to change one thing, that changed all 134 lines. So he called me up, left the message, the same one on my voicemail at work as on my cell phone. The message went for 5 minutes, telling me exactly what to do. Move this, move this, move this. I sent him one message back. I said, in the words of Phil Stebbins, send me an AVO, period. And that was it.
You know,
it was settled.
You know, Steve, I learned to ad-lib, seriously, with the Bob Kurzman spots, because they weren't very well written. And, you know, I would get lost in like 2 seconds. I would read it cold. He'd say, can you do this? And it's coming up like in 2 minutes. So I'd read it cold, and it took me, I was lost. So I'd start to ad-lib, and Kurzman would be like, what the hell is this? What's he reading? You know, I mean, and I
who tells you to do that? You can't do that to me. I told you. I take great pains to write great copy. I don't care that you think it's too long. You're the disc jockey. You do it the way it's written.
I'm the salesperson. You do your job, is what he would tell me.
I want to talk to, where's the general manager? Where's Dick Corson? I want to talk to Dick Corson. Dick Corson would lock his door.
But you know why at WPLR we had the sales meetings with the programmers in the same meeting, and it made a difference for them to understand that their paycheck was directly related to how it was delivered on the air. And even if they didn't like what they were reading, they had to know that it was for everybody's good. But I will say this, and Ron, I think, and you too, Steve, we couldn't have managed at not at PLR, at CRN, if it weren't for computer science, because we would be trafficking spots to 150, 200 radio stations in an hour.
Yeah, and God bless Eddie Schaefer. Without Eddie, I don't know how we ever would have done it.
I'll tell you, pharmaceuticals go along. Never mind, but I can. But no, that's the difference between the way we had to make a living in the old days and the way it could be done. Because you know, even the radio networks, a network, you know, you feed a spot down the line, that's the end of it. The radio station
Well,
has to clear it, but you never had, half the time you never got the affidavits back from the
You know,
radio
the programming guys, and you guys, programming guys, can relate to this, hated those commercials because it was such a tune out to the audience. Matter of fact, there was a guy named Tommy Van Scoy, Van Scoy's Diamond
Van
Mine.
Scoy's
Everybody
Diamond,
remembers that
yes.
client.
I'll give it
And
to you half
when I,
price.
when I was at TIC, what was the guy's name? Who was the program director? I can't remember his name.
Ross Miller?
But
Ross Miller?
no, on the FM. It doesn't matter. Anyway, he went on to bigger and better things, I guess. But he came in my office one day, and I was a sales manager at TICFM. He came in and says, "I got some bad news." I said, "Why?" He says, "We're not running those Van Scoy Diamond Mine spots. We'll record them for you. We'll have one of the jocks record them, but we're not running them. It's a tune out." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Listen to the spot. People are going to start hearing it. It's like a screeching. I'm Tommy Van Scoy." It was the worst spot. It was worse. And basically, he said, "We will not run those spots. I'm sorry. It may cost," because he didn't care about the money or the advertising, because he cared more about, and he was right, more about, we don't want to chase listeners away, and that chases listeners away. Bruce,
All right, so I have an appointment announcement. We just have a celebrity sighting. Bob DiCarlo is joining us, and I sent out the cover of this book that's being put out from Tony Ronzoni about radio stations in Connecticut, and Bob DiCarlo, right there behind the WDRC mic, is on the cover of that book, sitting there. Yeah, I'll have to make sure I send it out again, but the book is going to be coming out in a little bit, and right there, big picture of Bob DiCarlo on the WDRC mic. Looks
Get some royalties, Bob.
Yeah.
So what's happening in your
Funny,
world,
Jim.
Bob?
Funny, you know.
Do you still get a lot of work at the hockey games?
Oh no!
I couldn't help it.
Bob's never heard that before, ever.
So Bob, how are you? What's going on?
Well, actually, I've had computer problems, and I also have cirrhosis of the liver, which is really kind of neat. Well, I'm 83. Am I the oldest man on the joint here?
Yes.
Wow. God bless you, man. That's incredible.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling okay. And
That's good.
actually, I've just been so doggone busy and doing a lot of things. And now I'm just glad to be back and to see all of you. I really am.
Good to see you, Bob.
Pardon?
Good stuff.
Great to see you.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to seeing you on the book and getting the book. I remember my interview with him.
Me too.
I mentioned Bob in a Facebook post. Someone was posting something about WICE in the 60s. And I mentioned, that's where I first met Bob. Bob was the program manager who hired me off the street. I was selling pencils at the time. And
it wouldn't be pens now.
It's true. That was 1969.
Wow.
And he, great jock. It was a great sounding station, by the way.
Oh,
if you ever went to Providence, WICE sounded phenomenal. It just had a mediocre signal,
But talk about pipes. Those DiCarlo pipes were amazing. And nobody had better aviator glasses, and the hair was just absolutely. I don't know. Bob Craig had some pretty good glasses too. You guys always looked good, and I think that was the thing too back then. Casual has gone casual everywhere these days, even the insurance companies and stuff. But you guys always looked good. Looked like you were ready. All the stations looked like you were ready if somebody stopped by. I think it also had a lot to do with how your performance was too when you were on the air. But
obviously, you never saw me in 1969.
Do you remember WSVP up there?
In West Warwick.
Voice of Providence in West Warwick. Yes, I was offered a job there. I think it was 1970 or something like that before I came down to WAVZ. But I remember that. Yeah.
Wasn't Debbie Rich there at at West Warwick? She was Debbie Buckler before that, and then because she has ended up, because that's how I got into the Rhode Island Radio Hall of Fame, was that Debbie Rich, who was Debbie Buckler, who actually won tickets to go to see the Beatles in Shea Stadium in '65 with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 10 years older than she was, and So we've kept in touch, and we're still in touch to these days. And she ended up being, he became a senator, and he was the mayor of Warwick. And I don't remember his name.
I just remember I went up there for a quick interview. They called me, and I decided not to go, but I always enjoyed going to Rhode Island, and I worked and I have to run. I gotta go to a meeting. This has been wonderful. I love doing this. The one of the station I came to Connecticut from was WSDS, and I was there in 68, 67, 68. It was serving Detroit suburbs, except at the University of Michigan, they had another thing going called Students for a Democratic Society. And so you want to talk about a misunderstood brand? Particularly because WSDS was country. It was really.
Do you remember, Bob, the promotion you did with Gary DeGrade, who worked at WDRC too? But he had to go out into the middle of the Providence River in a boat, and it was so polluted that I guess you guys had to make sure he had his shots.
Oh my God!
Oh, that's like going to the Olympics in Paris.
Yep, that's
true. That's true. Like the Olympics in Paris.
I'll see you guys. Had a great time.
See you, Dick. Hey, Dick.
See you later, Dick.
See you soon, Ron. Yep.
You know, Jim, what you mentioned about Bob having the difficulty with WICE, great programming, bad signal.
Yeah.
He had that same situation in Pittsburgh with KQV, not the greatest signal in the market, but a great sounding station when Bob was PD there.
It had 6 towers, KQV, in the middle of the North Hills. And I mean, the guy who originally owned KQV, they said like in 1923, we can give you a 50,000 watt license. And the guy said, oh, I don't think we need it. We serve just about everybody we need to serve right here with what we have. In the meantime, KDKA was 50,000. And, you know, at the time they had a phenomenal signal.
There's a station in Milford, Peter WFIF.
Oh yeah.
Fades in Fairfield.
Right.
What?
We fade in Fairfield.
Fades in
WFIF, is that right?
That's what it's right? No, that's just what people say it stands for.
Well, I mean, I know Alton Irwin, Willie B. Good used to work there, screaming his lungs out, but nobody heard the station because it was like 5,000 watts, and it fed the fish population directly in Long Island.
And it was daytime only. It's like 7 in the winter, 7:30 in the morning till 4:15 in the afternoon.
No radio station in Providence, WLKW, 50,000 watts, and they went directly out Narragansett Bay, next place, England.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, they had worse signal.
990, 50,000 watts daytime, 990.
Straight up in the air.
Yeah. Hey, Bob and Jim, a question for you from Providence. Was there a guy in Providence? I think he may have been a WLKW. Was his name Maury Lowe? Does that name ring a bell?
Marty Lowe?
Maury Lowe. He used to do spots for Anderson Little.
I knew the name. I know the name.
I think he was with WLKW, and he had a very
Anderson Little.
Anderson Little.
Clothing store.
That name I know.
Based in Fall River.
Yeah, well, he was the voice of Anderson Little spots that ran through New England, pretty much in Boston and Providence. But I remember him doing the spots, and I think he was at LKW. This is now in the mid-60s.
I know the name.
Maury Lowe. Well, as long as you know the name, at least I know I'm not hallucinating down here in Philly.
Well, you know, that's where Judd Otis started, was in Fall River.
Mm-hmm.
WSAR? What the
SAR,
sure.
WSAR.
Yeah, that's where
Dave Nagel just joined us. Hi, Dave. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
How's Marlene feeling?
She's okay. She's upstairs and you know, keeping the dogs company.
Good. Yeah, we were talking about some nightmare production jobs in the past, and I know with you between HCN and DRC and ICH and everything, we're talking about when one station would be responsible for making dubs for all the other radio stations and having all the different reps stop by and pick up the tapes.
Oh God, were the agencies coming in and driving you nuts, waiting for them? Bob Kurzman comes to mind. I'm a very honest man, but I'll wait for you to make 17 dubs, because then I have to drive them all over. And it's like, we can digitally deliver them. No, I have to bring them.
Well, I can tell you, Bob Kurzman, Charlie Parker wasn't afraid, without even checking with him, to edit the living crap out of a Kurzman spot. He would just take his pen and go, all right, go ahead, record it. But couple of times where one specific time where Bob basically threw my dad under the bus, and my dad, he would always stand up for Bob, and really bad. And it was like they just, my dad was just, we wouldn't argue with anybody, but when he was upset. And well, he had a couple of go-rounds with me. But I will say, though, I came back a brand new rookie, and on my desk was a very substantial annual contract for Card Gallery. And I looked at this and went, it was from Bob Kurzman. And I said, He said, did Bob Kurzman come into your office today? And I said, why? He says, well, he came by my office and said something. I just gave an order to Steve Parker, so everything should be okay with you and I now. And I went in, and I think I may have brought the contract into Ron. And I just said, not doing it. I just not doing it. I said, if this is the way he wants to play the game, and if people want to do this, much as I need the billing, nope, this is not going to be the way you're going to make up to him. And I just handed it back, because he was just like, but like I say, my dad sold for 5 years. He said he got up every morning and threw up and went to work,
Yeah, not for him.
But he had to support a family. So he could always relate with the sales guys, and Ron will attest. I mean, no matter how bad it was, Howard's Piccadilly Relish, whatever.
I remember that promotion. Thank you, Ron. I remember that.
Yeah. Charlie, listen, I always said Charlie Parker was the sales department's best friend, because he knew how to do the creative in such a way that it was wonderful creative stuff on the air without Bob Kurzman's getting in the way. I got to go, but the last thing I'll say about Bob Kurzman, the reason Bob Kurzman got fired, if you remember a guy named Tom Pate, who was the sales manager there, a very low-key California guy. And if you ever got close to Bob Kurzman and had a conversation with him, you would be covered in spit in about 30 seconds, because he would just continue to talk fast and spit on everybody. And finally, Tom Pate had enough. He says, you're fired. He says, you can't fire me. I said, not only can I, you're fired, leave today, because I'm tired of being spit on. That's it. And that was the end of Bob Kurzman.
Yep. And I will tell you, Ron, there were a couple of things. One of the things that my dad loved to rhyme, and he would say, really? You can be sure if it's furniture. That was one of his favorites. And he also wanted to do a contest. I don't think anybody ever took him up on it. He wanted to do the upside down furniture contest, where if they could go door to door like Ed did with Man from Mars, and if you had all your furniture glued to the ceiling, you'd win some sort of a contest. He would always be, and then he used to say about Roy Rogers was real good fast food. So my dad would go, real good fast food, But the thing is, it really is a way that things, the rhyming, would stick in people's brains. But
I got something positive to say about Bob Kurzman. Believe me of all people.
I'm thinking you did production long before I did with him, Dave. So I'm sure you've got stories.
Yeah. And when I left DRC, and DRC left me, whatever, I left, and I had gone over to the ad club festivities over at RCH, and I'm in there, and here's Kurzman cornering Domenico, and saying, you got to get this guy. He's this, he's that. He knows everything. Domenico goes, okay, what's his name? His name is Dave Overson.
Oh,
says,
God.
Where can I find him? And I says, well, if you turn around, Bob, you may find him there. And so it got me I did a quick interview with him. I knew I was going over to ESPN, and my agreement with DRC is if I got a job in radio in Hartford, New Haven, or Springfield area, my severance will stop at the time of my employment. And then I said to him, well, I said to Corson and Trimble, I said, what about television? Well, if you can get a job in TV, we're not going to hold you to that. So I wound up working at ESPN. I was collecting 2 paychecks for a while, but I have to thank Bob Kurzman for his gesture of.
I know it's D. Dominicus. Now, was it Aldo or was it Aldo or Enzo? It must have been Enzo.
Enzo. It was Enzo. It was Enzo. And
I also have something positive to say about Kurzman. because he prided himself on being honest.
Yes, he
And
was. He was.
He hired me to do a voiceover for a commercial, and I think I went over to HCN, and Dave actually did the engineering. I was one voice, and then there was another. It might even have been Dave, but there was another voice. And then what happened was Kurzman made another commercial, but he used my part, but didn't change my part, but he changed the other guy's part. And he sent me another check for, because as is proper, it was a new commercial, even though I didn't have to do anything different.
Right.
And almost nobody does that. And he said, no, it's a new commercial. Here's another check.
Honest
one guy
as the
that
day is long. I'll say that about him. Very honest guy.
One guy that loved
did.
Kurzman,
And
one guy that
Cable-
loved was Dick McDonough. Dick McDonough did all the GOBs on furniture that you can imagine him. And I remember
A lot of those.
Dick was doing the Wachtell spot, and that's the one where everyone starts singing, "So long, it's been good to know you." So I would start that off with the commercial, and McDonough, he probably took him about 15 takes because he kept laughing after that. And he goes, "Why am I laughing?" He says, "This is the last time I'll be ending these spots, But no, Kurzman always kept McDonough busy.
And I tell you something, he did. Cable TV was designed for Bob Kurzman, because Bob, one thing about Bob, and he was always right about this, the weekend shopper special. I mean, Bob was always about frequency, and that's what cable's all about. So, he would know how to do that. So he would always hammer frequency. Commercials weren't always that best, but they were. Ron, I know you have to go, and I have to go because I'm going to the Bahamas today. I
What
want
a tough life.
Well,
Tommy
believe me,
Bahamas.
if you want
Where
the
are you
shirt,
going? There's a lot of Bahamas.
I got to show you the shirts and the pants. Then it's really a lovely day. But anyways, thank you guys. Anybody want to add anything before we jump out of here? And Bob, especially, our thoughts and prayers are with you guys that are going through some challenges right now. And it means the world, Bob, that you're able to jump on for a few minutes. And I know, Dave, you're going through a lot. Bob Marks was here, and Kaz is going through a lot. And like we talked about it before we recorded, but let's face it. I mean, a lot of us are dealing with health stuff. Eat the right stuff, do exercise like Ron is saying. And seriously, if you ever really want to know about what you should be doing from a health standpoint, send an email to Ron, because I give him my blood work to look at. I give it,
We've been doing this for years. Steve would go to his cardiologist and get all his lipid profile, and he sent it to me and says, "Am I okay?"
I would always say to my
doctor,
doctor,
"Think you're okay?"
Dr. Pell.
Lee Gordon, Lee,
That's another life, Ed.
Yeah, Steve mentioned the foundation, the Broadcasters Foundation.
I'm feeling good, but the reason I joined late is I had a nurse here giving me an antibiotic injection. So,
thank you guys.
But I feel fine.
This is it means a
Steve,
lot.
mention the foundation, Connecticut
I know,
Broadcasters.
I'm just wrapping up right here. You don't have to tell me to remember the foundation, okay?
Okay.
I love
These
it.
guys are partners? Whoa.
Real nice job on the new jingle, on the opening, on that. Did you do the close on it too, Dave?
I just did the graphics.
Okay,
and then Peter kind of gave me the start on that. I may change the graphics just to keep it different, but the jingles and that sound great. They sound great. Great job, Tracy. Great job.
Nice
And
job
too,
with all
Peter.
of you guys. And also, I want to remind everybody, we're going to come back next week. The good Lord willing, we'll be back again on the 16th of, was that right? Yeah, the 16th.
Yeah.
Next Friday. And don't forget, that's going to be the weekend going into the reunion. So it is going to be the 15th annual Connecticut Radio Reunion. And it basically started when, Ron and I one year, I mean,
1 o'clock.
we weren't doing any 50 years of rock and roll. So pretty much what we did was we said DRC wasn't doing 50 years of rock and roll for the anniversary. And Ron and I said, we'll do it. So whoever can show up, please show up. But don't ever worry about who can't make it. And if you can't make it, that's fine. We understand. But I know Pete's going to fly in here. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And if anybody needs any information about it, or,
Sure do.
and please tell everybody across Connecticut, because it really is the Connecticut Radio Reunion. And it'll be on the 18th, which is Sunday. Go from 1 to 5 p.m. What have we got here? Oh my gosh, look at that.
Tracy, Jerry, Christopher, everybody. Just a little memorabilia here.
That is great.
Awesome.
You guys
Jerry
remember,
was great.
you remember how big surveys were? Everybody, like the audience waited for surveys.
They loved them.
Yeah.
Well, they also had about 100. They also had about 100 songs listed on the damn thing.
And the Swingin' 60 survey.
Yes.
All right, guys.
We had a printing press.
See you next week.
We printed
There
our
you go.
Right there.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thank you so much. I do
More to
have to
come.
run because I got to get out of here. But
Likewise.
hey, look at
I'm
Terry
sorry, I
Woods
haven't-
steps in. Hi, Terry.
You know, you guys are all leaving. Why? Just because I came in? Is that
Yeah,
the problem?
pretty much.
It was something you said.
Yeah.
It's the West
I
Coast
mean,
thing.
we were talking about it for the last half hour. Where is he? But we'll just sign off. when
We
he gets
conjured you up. Yeah.
here.
All right, guys. Like I
Okay.
say, I do have to run. And please, everybody who's watching this and who's part of this, let's remember the Broadcasters Foundation of America. I think I got that right. For those people that are going through challenges and such, and we try to put a logo up on the screen for that too. Because they're there to help guys if you're struggling financially. Oh, there's the logo right there. Tracy, hold it up again. And financially, physically, if you know anybody in our business going through some tough times, don't be afraid to reach out to those guys. And TJ, introduce TJ and Lamp, introduce us to them. It really means a lot. All right. So God bless you guys. We'll be looking for you next Friday on the next edition of Radio Friends Again. I'm Steve Parker. Thanks a lot, guys. And here's all your take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Your friends, radio friends again. Radio friends again. We've got a lot to share.